All right, I'm not going to touch anything else now. We're just going to leave it as is. I don't care what pop-ups happen. I'm not touching anything.
Can you see me?
I can see you. Yeah, I can hear
Okay.
you. I can see you. Everything's good.
Okay. Awesome.
All right, sweet. So let's just get started it so that nothing else goes wrong.
Yes.
Totally. So let's just kick it off by maybe you can tell us a little bit about you and sort of the art that you make and why you make it.
Yeah, well, hi everyone. I'm Ashley Laren. My art that I make is basically around landscapes and kind of inspired by travels that I have been on. My mom and I will try and take like one big trip a year, and I'll take tons of photos for to kind of look back on whenever I'm not able to travel the other, almost 360 days of the year.
Hmm.
So. With this collection, there's a lot of kind of desert themed scapes. I'm from Kansas, so going to the desert is like was a crazy experience for me. And even like the shirt that I chose to get for my first shirt from the collection, this is in Arizona. And yeah, so a lot of my art is landscape paintings or digital art kind of inspired by the places in nature that I really enjoyed going to.
Awesome. It's so cool to see, your landscape stuff and then also sort of the broader resurgence of landscape as well. But let's not anticipate that too much. Sort of let's take it to the very beginning. And when did you start creating art?
Oh man. Ever since I was little, I'd say, which I mean, I think a lot of artists say that, but
Hmm.
yeah, I was that kid that in class I had to doodle to pay attention. And it was usually like the same things over and over again, like drawing an eye or like drawing ghosts or something like that. Um, but over the past 5 years or so, I really got into painting. And before that, it was mostly just like drawing with graphite and charcoal and stuff. And I decided not to be scared of color anymore and just jump in head first to do painting. And
Yeah,
now
yeah.
I'm here. I still love painting.
Awesome. That's cool. It's interesting that like, and this is jumping ahead a little bit, but one of the things that people were interested in and sort of sourcing questions from patrons is you work in a lot of different mediums, and I wonder like what sort of causes you to lean one way or another with those mediums.
So I would say that my favorite medium overall is working with acrylic paint.
Hmm.
Um, It's malleable. You can mix totally new colors that you didn't know existed, it feels like. Um, and acrylic paint versus like oil, it dries fast. I like putting on
Hmm.
layers and stuff, and it's less intimidating for me. Um, I work in clay sometimes, like these earrings. I made these out of clay. But then I painted them as well. So it almost always comes back to painting in some way or another. But then,
Hmm.
so of course, for this collection, this is a digital piece. I feel like sometimes digital art can be more, it's easier to put on products. So
Hmm.
that's kind of
Yeah.
why I got into that space. And yeah, I kind of like the kind of like cartoony element of adding the line work and stuff. So
Yeah. Well, that's one of those fun things that when I was first working with your pieces and sort of trying to create these things, I noticed that almost like cartoony element, like in the with the saguaros and with the it's on the mug with the saguaros, but sort of it has an interesting look. And even looking through your
yeah.
other pieces, there's sort of like a few very distinct styles, which is really cool that you're able to sort of work in those mediums and just sort of express yourself uniquely in each of those in interconnected mediums basically. But I guess that's a good sort of lead on for like how would you describe your style? Do you think that you have sort of one coherent style? Is it sort of all over the place? Do you even feel like style is an important thing for you?
So one specific thing that I feel like I've kind of become known for in some of my pieces, and you might be able to kind of see this piece behind
Hmm.
me, but the very top, there's these white kind of wispy clouds, and I almost
Hmm.
kind of like color block those kind of things. And that's, you can see that in some of my other pieces too, not even just the clouds, but I like kind of doing blocks of color, um, getting like the emotion of the place. I definitely love when like landscape painters that are super realistic, but I want to be able to kind of capture the essence of a destination without being like super serious about it. I don't want my art to
Hmm.
be super serious. I want
Yeah.
it to kind of convey those emotions and like the colors of these places, like just super bold. So I like to categorize
Hmm.
myself as like bold colors and a little bit playful.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting because with you having an art history background, there's sort of things that I'm hearing that are almost like buzzwords when you're talking about like color blocking. You're like, well, this is the specific, formula analytical piece that you can relate to my career. It's very interesting. And having interviewed several artists, quite a few, I guess, at this point, that's a very unique thing that I haven't heard of before. Like I haven't heard somebody say, well, specifically I have this one motif that I use or what I don't know if you'd call it a motif, but
Yeah,
it's a really cool, very intentional piece, which is pretty awesome and definitely sets you apart, I think.
thank you.
So we have a question here. Is there a type
Yeah.
of landscape that you haven't explored painting yet but are wanting to?
That's a really good question. Like I was kind of saying, I've spent a lot of time kind of painting more desert Southwest scenes.
Hmm.
Um, I would like to experiment more with water. I have this one painting that has been really popular when I show it at shows or like it's the most popular art print I
Hmm.
have in my shop. It's of a kind of like a green forest with a waterfall in the middle.
Hmm.
I get a lot of good reception on that, and I would like to kind of work with water more. I will say I live in Missouri around the Ozark Mountains. They're not mountains,
Hmm.
but that's what we call them. And
Yeah.
that painting is of a park in the Ozark Mountains. So I think people
Hmm.
also find a personal connection to that. But yeah, I'd like to experiment with
Awesome.
water more, I think.
That's so cool. As soon as you said, "Oh, I'd like to experiment with water," I thought of exactly that piece on your website. I mean,
Yeah.
it's if people who are watching haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend going to Ashley's website and looking at it. It's a phenomenal piece. It's really cool.
Thank you.
Um,
I love that one.
so let's I guess we can talk a little bit about well, I guess your inspiration maybe for some of these pieces, for some of these landscapes. Like where I know you were talking about going on trips and sort of having that as sort of a thing that you want to look back on. Is that something that you've started more recently with that inspiration? And do you work from like photos? Sort of all of those questions are happening at once for me.
Yeah, so maybe I go back to a little bit of the beginning of my specific like landscape paintings. So in 2020, we remember that guy, so nice. When we kind of, well, I was laid off from my job for a little bit, as many people.
Me
And
too.
I kind of took, yeah, it's very familiar.
Yeah.
I took that opportunity to kind of experiment with my art a little bit.
Hmm.
So I went on Skillshare. Skillshare had like a little bit of yeah, they had a free trial for people since they were home all the time. And I had taken like this little landscape workshop, and the guy was really into the kind of almost mixing colors on the canvas, not having a lot of rules
Mm.
behind it. It felt really ephemeral, and so I kind of took that time to look at places I wish I was traveling to that I've taken photos
Hmm.
of before. And that's how it started. Now, from this point, now that travel is a little bit more accessible, um, I go on my vacations with intentions of taking lots and lots of photos and
Hmm.
kind of looking at spaces that I think would capture those moments for me and would be well transmitted into a painting. So
Yeah.
yes, I work from photos to answer that part of your question,
Hmm.
but I think in the future I would love to try plein air painting, which is like
Hmm.
painting on site for people that are watching and might not know that. But that's where I'm at right now. Usually photos.
It's interesting. I mean, as sort of an archivist who has studied, artists in the past, that's definitely something that people used to do is they would take a trip and take a bunch of come back with like 100 slides or whatever, what
Yeah.
the flammable ones, just all the really bad
Yeah.
film that people used to have, and they paint from that for years even, and it's one of those amazing things where I don't know, it's just interesting to see sort of the patterns throughout history and people sort of going back to that, especially right now, where, you know,
Mhm.
we've been sort of stuck in one spot. So it's really interesting to see sort of um, your influence in that way. And I'm kind of curious about sort of the other side of that, right? Where like if you're not working from photos, maybe you're working from stuff that's sort of around you. And I wonder if sort of being an artist, and I don't know if this is necessarily true, so correct me if I'm wrong, but working sort of primarily from the internet as a place to like connect your art to other people and get inspiration and things like that. I wonder if the internet has influenced or supported your career in different ways and sort of what it's. I mean, I know in our case it has, right? Because we're people who met entirely off of TikTok. So
Yeah. Oh
I'm
my gosh.
curious about like, yeah, how the internet has influenced and supported your career and sort of made you make different decisions.
Yes, let me answer your question and then we'll get to the question that Gray Ariart sent.
Oh yeah,
I'll,
yeah.
I'll answer that next. So definitely, I mean, it's so interesting to live in a time where you can interact with artists without ever meeting them
Hmm.
across the whole world. Like if we didn't have social media, I'd probably only be interacting with artists in Missouri or Kansas or just places just around me. Um,
Hmm.
so let's see. I want to mention this one artist I follow here on TikTok.
Hmm.
I think her name on here is Colorful Kayak. Go check her out.
Okay.
Right now, she is traveling the whole United States and painting every national park on site. And that inspires me to no
That's
end. I
amazing.
know. Go check her
That's
out.
so cool.
Um,
Colorful
Colorful
kayak.
Kayak.
All right.
Yeah. So, yeah, she's painting them all on site. They're amazing. So that's super inspirational. And I guess, yeah, just things like that are just make me think of what I want to do in my career, or even just art personally for myself. Um, and definitely, you can use the internet to find resources and get better at your craft too.
Hmm.
It's an amazing resource, I would say. And then, I've heard of her. She's so dope. Yeah, Colorful Kayak. Go check her out. She's doing something
Definitely.
awesome. Um, and then for my favorite color to use, or favorite colors in paintings is red. And you'll kind of see that even in this collection. Like there's lots of red in this one. And like, yeah, just lots of desert places have lots of red in the rocks, or I don't know, red or green would be my second, I would say. Because
I
green is
was
my
wondering if,
favorite.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was wondering if green was going to be up there because
Yes.
you use green so beautifully. Yeah,
Thank you.
awesome. So let's talk a little bit about, I guess, on the theme of the internet and support and stuff like that. Like, what are some of the most impactful methods of support that you've found in your career?
So, I would definitely say that financial support is a great form of support. I would
Woo.
not deny that at all. I think I'd be lying if I didn't say that.
Yeah,
So,
well, absolutely, yeah.
yeah. So I have some people that are repeat customers in my shop, and it's amazing to know that my art resonates so much with those people. But even if
Hmm.
you can't financially support an artist, like people will share my videos or pictures or anything on across social media. And that's always amazing to just like, show that you enjoy my stuff and then it can get it to eyes of people that haven't seen my art.
Hmm.
Let's see. I know there was another thing I wanted to say about support. Um, I mean, other artists just like kind of
That's
pumping
so
you
funny.
up.
Colorful Kayak just
Yeah.
sent me a message on Instagram and started following me just in that moment. So maybe something will happen over there. Who could say?
Oh
That would be
my gosh,
pretty
it's so
cool.
funny. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, I think there was something else I wanted to add about support. No, I just words of encouragement are great too.
Yeah,
Plus
definitely.
even like the small things.
Hmm.
So yeah.
That's so. I mean, I did a video about that a while ago where it was like, "What's the most important method of support for artists?" And everybody said different things, and it was one of those wonderful posts where people were just like it really depends on the person. And obviously people are like, yeah, money is important, definitely, but there's so much beyond that that goes into it, especially like a lot of us do this as sort of like a second job. I know some of us are sort of like really pushing the envelope and not doing that, but or it doesn't really matter how you're doing this career, but longevity comes from so many things other than just monetary support, right? It comes from community, it comes from all sorts of awesome stuff, basically.
Oh, I will.
So yeah.
I'll add one more thing. I remembered what the other thing was. So supporting artists,
Mhm.
directing me to opportunities. That has been a
That's
great
a
form of
great one.
support, and that's been more people in my direct community where I live.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's been a great form of support. Is just, hey, I heard about this opportunity. You'd be great for it, and maybe I do it, maybe I don't, but it's just good to know that people are thinking of what I do and how I can, they think of how I can excel at it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about like your local area. Like what is it like to be an artist creating in Missouri, which is technically not the South, as I learned recently.
oh my gosh, if you're watching, we had this conversation yesterday where Missouri was the South, but it's anyway, yeah, it's the
It's not, it's the
Midwest for me.
Midwest.
It's basically the South. But yeah, so
Whoops.
uh, my town is about 150,000 people, which is,
Oh wow.
I don't know, I guess that's an okay size, but I'm the biggest
Yeah.
city in like all of my area. So I'm
Hmm.
surrounded by small towns, and like this would be the art hub of my area,
Hmm.
which um, like there are parts of my area that have been very supportive of art, but of course there's also um, like lots of farming communities, lots of like hands-on jobs where people are very like they don't understand art as a career in a way.
Hmm.
Um, but living here has opened many doors for me, I'd say. Like I had interned for an art institution where like I continue to have doors open even years and years down the road from that. I've had opportunities to like be a founding member of an art collective here.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, there's pros and cons, I guess, because there would be more art opportunities if I lived somewhere bigger, but there are people that really try and hit the ground running on arts initiatives near me. And like once you know just a couple people in the art community here, it's like you almost know everyone.
Yeah.
You'll just have mutuals all across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of those interesting things though, where you talk about like if you're in a bigger place, like there's more opportunity. Like a lot of the artists that I've worked with have been in Portland, Oregon and Salem, Oregon. And I've noticed from folks over there that even though the art community is potentially a little bit bigger, in Portland, there's, I think, I don't know exactly how many people are in that metro area, but it's like somewhere between 400,000 and I think a million people, maybe.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Yeah.
and yeah, it's kind of bigger, but one of the things that happens is that folks kind of get freezed out of spaces, right? Like there's only so many slots and there's so many more people trying to get in there. Whereas when you go to somewhere like Salem, which is smaller, which is probably about the same size as what Springfield, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of that thing where like if you want to start something, you can get 10, 20 people together, and that's a big enough percentage of the total population of artists in that area that you can really get the ball rolling. So I
Yeah,
don't know, it's an
that's a good point.
interesting kind of thing. So let's talk a little bit about like the spaces that your art inhabits. Like, do you think of
Yeah.
yourself as an artist that wants to show in galleries? Do you want your work in museums? Or like, are you trying to go for private commissions? Is it all three? Is it, like kind of what are your thoughts on where your art belongs in the art world?
Yeah, so I've done gallery shows. I do a couple a year. I haven't done a whole bunch yet, but honestly, that's just because I want, like, galleries want bigger pieces, and I work pretty
Hmm.
slow. Um,
Hmm.
I think that's kind of a little bit of avoiding burnout as like
Yeah.
if I work on a painting more than 2 hours a day, which doesn't sound like very much, but then I'm like,
That's a
okay,
lot.
I can't do more than 2 hours a day on a painting. I mean, I can,
Hmm.
but So I've done some galleries. I would like to do more. That's one of my goals for the future.
Hmm.
Um, I wouldn't complain if my art was in a museum. I don't think that's one of my goals at the moment, but if that happens along the way, be very pleased.
Awesome.
And as far as art commissions, that's something that I enjoy doing, and I offer art commissions.
Commissions
um,
are open. Very good.
yeah.
Very good to know.
Um, but I don't want it to be my main focus as art commissions because I do like being able to capture my own experiences and tell
Hmm.
stories, either that just visually through my art or having my painting there and me being able to verbalize kind of the experiences around it. Um, I kind of like that example that I just said when I've gone to shows or I'll do craft fairs and stuff. I'll have one of my my paintings there, and it will be like, "Is that Moab, Utah?" I'm like, "Yes," and then they'll tell
Hmm.
me their stories based on my story that they kind of saw
Mm.
visually. So,
Hmm.
um, I think there's all some
That's
really
interesting.
great, hello, really great experiences in all of those sectors.
Awesome. So let's move on to some of the I don't necessarily want to call them tougher questions, but more like big picture questions, right? Like we were talking about yesterday. So landscape painting has become a lot more popular recently, right? And I'm kind of curious about like why do you think landscape painting is kind of coming back? Why are so many younger artists, newer artists getting into this medium, and why are they getting so much traction, do you think?
Yeah, I almost think, at least this is how I see it from my own experience, is that, I mean, over the past two, going on 3 years, we've been kind of like, we've gone through a pandemic. We're not all the way through it yet either. And people have really started to reevaluate what's important to them in their lives. So
Hmm.
I think that landscape painting has become more popular because people are saying that they want to spend their time outdoors and experiencing these places that are so unique to, for me, I specialize in like American landscapes, and I see a lot of
Hmm.
people on my kind of different feeds um, going through America and painting all of these different sceneries. So yeah, I think it's just really kind of revitalized because people are wanting to take on those experiences and
Hmm.
um, capture it while it's pristine like this in a way.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great sort of way to segue into the next part of this question. And so thank you for setting me up like that.
Yeah.
Is like what is
Oh,
the
she's on
role
here.
of
I
Oh
talked
yeah,
about
what's
you
up?
colorful kayak.
That's so cool. Welcome. So let's talk about like the role of the landscape artist as sort of like a documentarian of the world as it goes through climate change. Like, do you feel that mantle when you create? Is that something you've ever considered?
So when you sent me these questions and that one was there, that one I had to sit and think about a lot
Hmm.
because I don't know if I've really sat and thought about it while I've been painting before, but it is a really good question because even when you look back at landscape paintings from, I don't know, 50 years ago, even that almost like short period of time, landscapes have changed a lot. And I,
Tremendously, yeah.
and I actually kind of want to point out one of my favorite pieces of art um, that kind of touches on this subject. So in Utah, or it's on Salt Lake, the Great Salt Lake, there is this art piece called Spiral Jetty.
Hmm.
It was created in 1970 and it's like made out of the earth. It's like rock and
Mm.
salt and all of that stuff. And that's something that I kind of like, okay, so it's still there, 1970 to now, but you can see the kind of progression of how it deteriorates away. I can't say that word. Um, and yeah, that's something to kind of I've thought about a little bit in my work is I'm capturing these landscapes in this very point in time. And hopefully they don't change, but
Hmm.
it's going to happen. Erosion happens. Um, the people happen. People
Yeah,
walk
yeah,
on
yeah,
stuff.
exactly. Well,
Yeah.
and maybe Colorful Kayak can speak to this a little bit more, but especially in national parks where you do have so many people going through, human contact is a big issue, right? Um, and one of the other interesting things is that being sort of a pandemic era landscape artist is very interesting because we've seen, and I can speak to this specifically, like living in the Puget Sound area of Washington, is you can visibly see the difference in terms of the lowered interaction with people in the natural environment, right? Like there has been an enormous resurgence in the natural life in the Puget Sound, and maybe that's true of other places, but I can't speak to that as directly. It's just interesting to sort of it's almost like a sling effect kind of, and I'm as long as we don't make bigger changes, that won't necessarily keep trending in a positive direction. But it's just kind of an interesting space to be in right now, where it's almost like liminal, right? Like we saw that things can get better, and now it's like, oh, we're not going to make those choices. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting thing. It's a very interesting thing. I don't know if you have any other sort of thoughts on that whole deal of being the documentarian, or as climate change affects the world around you, like if you were to go back to those places and see the differences, like I don't know, is that something that you would highlight, even like is that something that you're curious to do?
I kind of want to now that we've kind of had this discussion. Like I'm thinking about it on the
Hmm.
spot. Like um, a little different, but Georgia O'Keeffe would document her front door and she would paint it
Hmm.
in different ways. The same door, but the paintings are always different. So yeah, I think it would be interesting to be able to go back to some of the same places and be able to document them in different ways.
Hmm.
I think that'd be a really fun project. It could be really emotional though at the same time if the places have
Yeah.
changed extensively. I think it would just, it could go either way.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I sort of had a working relationship with the Hallie Ford Museum of Art in Salem, which is the teaching museum for the school that I went to, the college that I attended. And there was a recent exhibition there, maybe a month or two ago, of a woman who had spent a lot of time in Antarctica. And she had painted, basically these receding ice lines over a period of several years. And it was just, and that's kind of what inspired me to think about these questions, is like there's sort of an underlying aspect of these things, even if you're not considering art as sort of a documentary thing. And I'm not sure that that's necessarily the job that you can ascribe to art.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just interesting to see that happen. Um, so, yeah, I mean, do you have any other thoughts on that before we move on to a different sort of question?
I am just deep in thought. I can't, I think that I
Yeah,
don't have any more words to express right now, but it's definitely something
awesome.
I'm going to keep thinking about.
Okay, cool. And maybe we can revisit that sometime if it comes back. So let's talk about how the pandemic has sort of changed your. And you said, sorry, you said 12:45. Is that right? I want to make sure that we're solid on
Yeah,
time.
we still have
Okay.
time. Yep.
Okay, cool. So how has the pandemic changed your perception of being an artist?
I think I already touched on this a little bit, but it's not just me. Plenty of people have
Yeah.
kind of realized our mortality in a sense, unfortunately,
Hmm.
um, in a very, I mean, we've been confronted with it head on, to kind of think of what do you value? What do you actually want to do with life? Is this
Hmm.
9 to 5 where I'm doing something seemingly unimportant to me? Is that what I want to do? And a lot of people have
Hmm.
broken away from that to pursue their passions. And that was, I would say that the pandemic was a catalyst to my own art career. I mean, I've always created art for myself, but I think it was, um, yeah, it gave me that interest and drive to make
Hmm.
it something I want to do full time. And yeah, just it's created so many thoughts in everyone's minds, and
Yeah.
yeah, just made things more transparent on what is important to me.
So then what would a successful art career look like to you?
Oh man, that's such a big question.
I,
Um,
I guess it is.
so
Yeah.
definitely, I mean, this is just blatant, but financial stability, being able to support
Yeah.
my family and everything, which there's just ebbs and flows through that as an artist pursuing a career. And that can be for me really putting myself out there to opportunities that might be a little bit outside my comfort zone. Not saying they're
Hmm.
dangerous, but um, I can kind of be a shy person.
Hmm.
So I have to, like, I've learned networking is very important. And they don't teach you that in
Hmm.
like school and stuff, I guess. But
Yeah.
so yeah, being able to support my family. One of my big goals is I would love to be able to travel once every season of the year to a place
Mm.
to paint on site, document that space around me, and really be able to create like a collection based on that experience of that place I went for. I, I don't know, a week or so,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
that's a long term goal. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really, yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting idea, right? To be able to move around and have that, that mobility to be inspired and to get those photos and collect them. I think that's a really interesting thing, especially because, when you're taking the photos yourself, it's a very personal interaction. So I think we'll sort of move to wrap up just to be respectful of your time. But what do you have going on right now? Do you have any current projects that you'd like to tell people about?
Yeah, go check out this collection. It's
Woohoo!
so
Artfit.
exciting.
Yeah,
And yeah, like let's see all of it. That looks great. But
that's
that
such a cool
was,
piece.
yes, that was one of my big things right now. These actually might be right here. Hold on. So I just added some flower art prints to my shop. There's five right now. They are kind of flowers that I see around the Midwest, I guess specifically Missouri, but like pansies, magnolias, things like that. You can click the link in my bio here on TikTok to find that. Yeah, and I'm just hoping to kind of finish up some larger pieces to go to some galleries. Like right now, I'm working on a painting of my favorite park here in Springfield.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that would be really cool. It has lots of greens in it. So lots of
Very
green.
cool.
Yeah, that's really what I've been working on right now and kind of planning out fall collections since that's right around the corner.
Yeah, yeah.
Hopefully, yeah.
There's been a big push over here as well from some of the art fed artists to put out specific fall collections, some spooky season
Yeah.
stuff. I don't know if people, know Hannah Moultrie, but she does a lot of really cool spooky season stuff.
The shirt you're
So
wearing,
maybe
right?
we got some. What?
The shirt you're wearing is by her.
Oh yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah.
These scary ducks are by are by her. Everything she does is scary to me, but that's cool. That's what I love about it. Yeah. So this has been super fun. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks for all the people who have watched. This has been Artfit Clothing Co. X Ashley Lauren, the much awaited release. You can go check out the new collection on artfitclothing.com or check out Ashley's website through her link in bio, our link in bio as well. Um, yeah, it's been so much fun, and thank you so much for
Thank
your time.
you. Yeah. Thanks, guys, and thank you, Kel. Yeah. We'll see you later, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see you later. Awesome. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Bye bye.
All right, let's see here. All right, well, thanks everybody for tuning in. That's all for today. Yeah, it's been a blast, and thanks so much for this artist interview. We should have a few more artist interviews coming potentially over the next few weeks. We got to get them scheduled, but we're gonna have a lot of new releases this summer and into the fall. So, thanks so much for everybody tuning in, and see you next time.